the pandemic. Telehealth connected millions of patients to their doctors throughout the worst of COVID. Now the federal government has committed more than $100 million to continue the service. It's proven to be invaluable to people who have mobility issues, people in rural and remote areas, and those who cannot take time away from work to meet a doctor face to face.
It came about because of the pandemic, but it has changed the way Australians are able to access healthcare. Nothing beats face-to-face, but for so many Australians who might have problems with mobility, it might be older Australians, it might be people with some sort of mobility impairment, it might be a young mum with a small child and unable to easily get to the doctor. It could be somebody who's in a workplace environment where the time taken to travel to their GP for a repeat prescription simply may not be viable. And so for all of these reasons, as well as specialist consultations, we are extending telehealth and making it a permanent part of the Australian landscape.
Let's get more now with Mark Baxter, Director of the Australian Association of Psychologists. Mark Baxter, thank you for your time. How welcome is this announcement that telehealth is now permanent?
We've been advocating for this since the pandemic started, so to hear the news today is very welcome. There's psychologists that are very, very happy about this announcement, as well as other health practitioners and clients of ours that are already booked in for telehealth next year that are happy to hear this news.
What difference has it made to patients in need of psychological care?
It's increased flexibility and accessibility. I think Greg Hunt said it perfectly. He listed, a long list there of people who might need the flexibility to use telehealth. Some people simply can't get into an office. They can't. They have mobility issues. They have health issues. They might be getting a COVID test. And for other people, it's about continuity of service. So we might see a person several times and make a good start on their mental health. Work issues might come up, they might be doing homeschooling, there might be a sickness in the family, and to do continuous service is really helpful for prevention and for mental health treatment.
There are 20 Medicare subsidised sessions at the moment rather than 10, and that measure has been extended until, I think, the end of next year. Should those extra sessions be made permanent too?
We think so. The Australian Association of Psychologists are actually advocating for up to 40. Now, obviously, not everybody needs that, but we want the flexibility to be able to provide as many sessions as we need to deal with complex health issues, complex mental health issues. So we really welcome this announcement. We think it's a great step forward, and we'll be advocating for a little bit more flexibility there too.
Do we know the numbers of patients who have accessed these sessions for psychological care in the last 2 years?
Looking at digital health or telehealth across the board, it looks like about 16 million people, about 80 million episodes of service. That's not just for psychologists. I think that's across the board for healthcare. So I think those numbers alone just show how important this move is and this announcement by the government, which we welcome. And to hear that it's permanent is, very, very helpful for all the patients and clients that we see.
Lockdowns are seemingly now behind us, but what's the ongoing effect of them for people who are dealing with mental health issues?
We've seen statistics grow in the mental health area of need. Across the first 2020 pandemic, we saw an increase in demand for private practice services. We saw another increase again for 2021. There's multiple factors that are contributing to this, but all we know really at this point is that we need a diversity of options for people. We need flexibility, we need continuity. Telehealth provides a lot of that. Government's invested in digital health as well. There's a lot of pressure on private practice, and this eases some of that pressure and allows them to plan for 2022.
And even with this increased flexibility, the sector still needs more psychologists, doesn't it?
We're short. That's a fact. AAPi, Australian Association of Psychologists, is advocating for about 5,000 provisional psychologists to come into the Medicare sector. They're finished their university, they're getting supervision from one or more highly trained psychologists. They're doing work in the sector already. We want Medicare to fund a rebate for them so that they become accessible to the Australian population. That would increase the workforce by 5,000 instantly.
I mean, you're in Wollongong in New South Wales. This has been particularly good for people in regional areas, isn't it, where it's harder to access services?
Yeah, it is. I do work in Wollongong, and unfortunately, our business, we've got about 10 part-time psychologists, and we have to turn away about 40 to 50 people a month. It's heartbreaking. People, when they call, they've got an expectation to, see us next week or the week after. It's a reasonable expectation. And the survey that we did through Australian Association of Psychologists said that most psychologists have a waiting list. About 40% of people aren't taking clients at the moment. And the ones that are, most of them have a waiting list between 6 and 8 weeks. So we've got, a big situation on our hands, a big challenge on our hands, and we need to really come up with a range of solutions here.
Yeah, 40 to 50 people a month.